Welcome to the Convinced God Moves podcast, where stories of struggle are met with hope. My name is Audra, and today I'm sitting down with Bill. Bill was an avid hunter for decades. As a child, he followed closely behind his dad as he watched him hunt. As Bill went to college and into the military, hunting was not an option, especially in Germany during the Cold War and 2 deployments to Vietnam. Opportunities to hunt finally came years later. Bill explains how hunting had a hook on him, and he was consumed to get an elk. Today, Bill is going to be extremely honest how his frustrations were turning into anger. I want to encourage any non-hunters listening that Bill's experience can apply to anything in our lives that are out of balance. If you've got an obsession that you know isn't healthy, lean in. There's some great life application here. So with that, I bring you my friend, Bill.
I was born and raised in Massachusetts, but both of my parents were immigrants from New Brunswick in Canada. We as a family, and sometimes just Dad and myself, went back up to New Brunswick to visit the family up there. It was about a 500-mile drive, and it took us 12 hours or something like that. From as early as I can remember, we were up there every fall for a hunt, a deer hunt, and the very farm that he was raised on, that he hunted on as a child. But after he became an American citizen, the laws in Canada that if you're not a Canadian citizen, you have to hire a guide. And he had to hire a guide to hunt on the land that he grew up on.
Wow.
But he had a brother-in-law there who was also a hunter, his sister's husband, and he would be a guide for a whole week for a carton of cigarettes.
Oh, most affordable guide there was.
So we were up there regularly.
Okay.
I never harvested anything. As a matter of fact, I only carried a rifle in the woods one time. It was always Dad who did the shooting, and I was following closely in his footsteps. So that's where it began. The seed was in me. But of course, then after I graduated from high school, I went off to West Point. I went there not desiring to be a career soldier, but because it was free. And so after I graduated from West Point in June of 1960, I got married to my high school sweetheart, and we began traveling all over the world. Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and Fort Benning, Georgia. We went to Germany when we were there for 3 years, and two of our 3 children were born in Germany. I was in a nuclear delivery unit.
That sounds like a very stressful job.
It was.
And not a lot of fun with hunting.
No hunting. Having the weekend off meant we didn't have to work on Sunday morning. It was at the height of what is now called the Cold War.
Yeah.
Came back from Germany in 1964, and my wife and I said that wasn't all that bad. As a matter of fact, Germany and Europe was really a pleasant experience. If we were going to stay in the Army, I first needed to know how I would react when people were shooting at me. Because people weren't shooting at me in Germany. It was coming. If you're going to be in the Army, you're going to be in combat. Came back from Germany, I had to go to advanced artillery school. And when I signed in there, I said, after I graduate from this, I need to go to Vietnam. They said, we can arrange that. And that was before the Americans showed up in force. We were just a bunch of advisors, and I was in the rice paddies with the local Vietnamese defense forces. Never really was in hard combat, but I had some bullets go by really close to my head. When I came back from Vietnam, and the Army sent me to graduate school at the University of Southern California for 2 years, to get a master's degree in mechanical engineering, which was the ticket to go to West Point. I went to West Point, and I was on the faculty for 3 years. The first fall that I was there, my roommate, who was a roommate for 3 of the 4 years that I was a cadet, his name was Harold Smith, and he was from Mississippi. He hunted. So he took me back out into the woods. West Point is much more than a campus. It's a military reservation big enough for artillery operations and helicopter operations, and lots of good territory to hunt and fish. And so we went out on opening day of my first fall there. At 7 o'clock on opening day, I had a nice deer laying down, a nice buck. Well, I was hooked.
Yeah.
I was hooked. Yes.
That was fast. That must have been thrilling.
Yes, it was. It was. I continued hunting. And so I was there for 2 more years. A couple more really nice white-tailed bucks, and they're on the wall over there. And so hunting got its hooks in me. It revived some of the old things when I was a child, and all of a sudden I had success hunting. But after 3 years at West Point, I went back to Vietnam for another year. And so there wasn't any hunting there. But after Vietnam, then I went to Fort Carson, Colorado. Colorado was elk country. So I was ecstatic. I said, boy, I'm going to get me one of those big antlered animals. But I didn't. I tried too much. I got a deer, lots of pheasants. So my dream of having a big set of antlers, and I don't know what was attractive about them. The elk is a magnificent animal, majestic. You see a big elk walking around, and his antlers are going everywhere as he turns his head. He's huge, and this is his kingdom in the forest. They're majestic animals. They happen to taste good too. So I didn't get that bull elk the 2 years that I was in Colorado. So the Army sent us to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Well, there's lots of geese, lots of pheasants, lots of ducks, deer. I even had time to Colorado to go on a deer hunt with my old roommate who was now there. I drove up to Cheyenne, Wyoming, where my ranger buddy was going to graduate school, and I got a pretty nice antelope up there. From the Command and General Staff College, I went to Korea for 2 years. There was nice hunting. There was an island off the southern tip of the peninsula that was overrun with pheasants. But the job that I had just ate up all my time. It wasn't pleasant. So after Korea, we went to Wisconsin. Lots of deer in Wisconsin. Pheasants, geese, ducks. I hunted with a passion. It wasn't good. It wasn't good for my family because I was gone when I had a spare moment. I was out with, I bought a hunting dog while I was there, and that was exciting to be in the field with the dog, having her sniff out a pheasant, and when I downed it, she'd go grab it and bring it back in her mouth and drop it at my feet. The first time that happened, I cried. I shot a pheasant, she got it, brought it back to me, and I cried. I couldn't believe that I could get a dog to do this for me. But she was a black lab, and she was a sweetheart. My wife and I began to drift. And that's what happens when you let other things interfere. And she wasn't particularly happy, and I wasn't. We didn't fight. It was just an empty relationship. To my shame and embarrassment, I divorced her. Very, very difficult for the children involved. But you hear about it all the time. That is the children who suffer in a divorce. And my children did, and I was estranged from them for anywhere from 5 to 10 years. Wouldn't talk to me at all. We had made a mess of our lives in southwest Wisconsin through divorce and remarriage. We needed to get out of there. Well, my old roommate again from West Point, with whom I had done a whole bunch of hunting before, was out here at Moscow going to law school. We had the door opened for us to get out of Wisconsin, and we came out here, and I was going to get a master's degree in business administration and go on to the military industrial complex and make big money. So we were only going to be here a couple of years. But boy, Idaho is elk country. Shortly after we got here, my wife's children were here under duress. They didn't want to be here. But we needed a really good youth program. And everybody in town was saying, you need to go to the Nazarene church for that. And Joni and I walked into the Nazarene church after visiting 2 or 3 other churches in town. And we knew on our first visit, that first day, that was home. It was the first time that I had ever seen people praising God instead of singing hymns. Tears coming down to their cheeks, just praising God. I'd never seen anything like that before. And neither had my wife. So we said, we don't even know what they stand for. And I should say that just before I went to Vietnam, I quit running from God. He was chasing me. Behold, I stand at the door and knock, and if anyone would open the door, I would come in and sup with him and he with me. Okay, Lord, just a second, I'm coming. Next week. He was there the next day. He was saying, Bill, give it up. I want you to take advantage of the opportunity provided by my blood to be reconciled with the Father. And so he had been doing that for several months, and I fell down on my knees beside my bed and cried out for forgiveness. And I knew it was there. It was permanent. I had assurance, and it's never left, despite of all of the rotten things I've done and said and thought. On any event, we came out here, but the Nazarene got their hooks in us, Nazarene Church. I'd never seen anything like that. It was genuine. They loved God. We had a pastor who looked at us and he saw something that we didn't even see in ourselves, and he started to disciple us, and he took us under his wing and taught us about the lordship of Jesus, and we began a whole new transformation in our life that we haven't turned back from. We decided, I don't care if I have to sweep the streets and the sidewalks in Moscow. We were going to stay there just so we could go to that church. It became an anchor. And so my old roommate, he took me up where he had done some elk hunting up in the Lochsaw River. I hunted up there for years and never saw that elk. Years. Probably 4 or 5 years. And I never got a shot. I fell into teaching at Washington State University. Well, when you're a teacher at a university, it's pretty tough to go on an elk hunt in the middle of October. But I felt really confident that I was not going to cheat the students in any way. I had a couple of nighttime and midterm examinations because I taught several sections. And in order to give them a midterm examination all at the same time, I reserved a time at the auditorium where they all could take the midterm examination at the same time. So I did that a couple of times, very legitimate reason to bring them all together. I owed them a class time. How about that, in the middle of the third week in October? And it was real. I mean, I did not take any shortcuts. The third week in October became an obsession. On Christmas Day, every year, one of the things underneath the tree was a calendar, big calendar for the whole year. And we'd open that up. I would draw a line through the third week in October, and it said elk hunting. And that was supposed to notify the whole world, don't mess with Bill, the third week of October. I was on the church board. We had regular meetings, but they were always the first Tuesday night of the month. But other things would come up, issues that had to be resolved at the board level, other things such as the kids getting sick. I had one friend die whose funeral I should attend. I had to be there in the middle of my hunting week. And I had another hunting friend, of all things, who planned a wedding in the middle of the third. These are all legitimate issues, but they were messing up my elk hunt. And I was getting frustrated, even angry. I started fending things off as soon as the school year began, and I drove everything away from that week that I could, but things kept coming up, and I resented it. My poor wife had to put up with me. She tried to help me to get out the door and so on, and it just, there was always something in the way. Not always, but things were just encroaching on that from both ends of the weekend before and the weekend after. I did get away. Sometimes I felt like I was leaving loose ends, but I had to go because I had a lust for antlers. It was way beyond a desire. It took several years, and finally one year I did get a shot and missed it. And I got very angry with myself for missing it. You know, this is the first shot I've had in 4 or 5 years of hunting, and now I blew it. So the week after I missed that first elk that I had a chance, I came home, and there was one more weekend of elk hunting before the season closed. And I came home from school and looked at the calendar. Lo and behold, there was nothing scheduled for Saturday. And so at about 3 or 3:30 on Friday afternoon, I said, Joan, there's nothing on the calendar for tomorrow. Will you come for a one-day elk hunt with me? She said, sure. We had a small camping trailer, pop tent kind of thing. And because I thought my elk hunting was over for the season, the guns and the other stuff were packed away, and it was quite a scramble to get everything together. So we got up to the Lochsaw. It's about a 4-hour drive from here.
Oh, wow.
We got up there and we got into the sleeping bags about midnight on Friday night. I was going to get up early in the morning and go down the trail where I had missed the elk the week before and see if I could get another shot. But the Holy Spirit was on me. He was saying, Bill, your priorities are mixed up. Hunting is coming between you and me. I was a good guy. My heart was good, and my walk with the Lord was improving all the time. As I matured, everything was going fine, except that I had this lust, is what it was. On Saturday morning, it was about 2 miles from the camper and 1,000 feet down from the camper where the elk were. And the conviction came on me. God began to point out to me that hunting enjoyed too much of a priority in my life, and I need to put it in the proper perspective. It was a very emotional time. I began to weep, cry out loud in the darkness. It was a crisis, and I quit. I quit running. And I said earnestly, I can't stand this anymore. Can't stand this coming between you and me. And so I will quit hunting altogether, if that's what you want. I knew for years that decision was ahead of me. Put it off as long as I could because I wanted to have a pure and sincere heart when I went to God and said, okay, I quit. Told him that I was sorry that I had such a lust for hunting and it competed altogether too favorably for my love for him. I think I sat down on a log and I was weeping audibly, loudly, nobody around but him and me, and I told him that I will give up hunting. I will sell all of the guns and reloading gear and hunting gear and camping gear, and I would not hunt it anymore. But I need to know for sure that that's exactly what you want me to do, because I'm ready. I quit. So I continued on down the trail and got into position where I could oversee this saddle, where I knew there was a lot of elk traffic. And shortly after legal hunting hours, I was watching. He was a couple hundred yards away. I had a nice 300 Weatherby rifle, Magnum, that would reach out there. He was walking towards me out of the saddle, and he would soon disappear into the bushes down below, but he was in the wide open. I squeezed off the trigger, and he went down. Right there. Didn't take another step. I sat there with my crosshairs on him for another minute or two, and I realized he wasn't twitching or anything like that. He was dead. So I began to put my backpack on, get ready to go over there to field dress him, and I saw 3 hunters coming out the same trail that he had just walked out. They were walking right towards my elk. I had heard horror stories about who gets to tag the elk, the person who killed it or the person who finds it first. They were going to find my elk. They were going to get there before I did. So I stood up and hollered and waved my hat, and I said, "Hello there." And they hollered back, "Are you the one who just fired a shot?" So I said, "Yes, the Lord just delivered into my hand a beautiful bull." They were standing within 25 feet of it, but they couldn't see it because it was in the bushes. Mm-hmm. And they said, "Great." They were the ones who pushed that elk towards me. I had shot that out from underneath their noses. They were coming up over the saddle. They were down behind the hill. There was no safety involved, but they were the ones who drove that elk towards me. So I said, "Wait right there. I'll be right over." I was hollering at them. And they waited right there. And I said, "Here he is, right there." Because they were just really, really close, but they couldn't see it. And they helped me to get it over on its back so that I could get to its stomach. I could not have moved that animal by myself. They stood with me and helped me dress that out, and we had to tie the legs to trees on both sides in order for me to get in between them. And then they took off, and one of them said, do you have a bone saw with you?" And I said, "No." This guy says, "Okay, here's my bone saw. If we don't meet up again, you can have it. I'll go buy another one." I wrestled with that thing for several hours to open it up, pull out the gizzards, the innards, and I was hoping to have a shoulder mount. In order to have a shoulder mount, you can't skin it from the front. And I got the cape off and the antlers and all in one piece, so I got the head. And all of that weighed about 60 pounds, and I couldn't carry both. And there was no room. You can't carry this monster on your head and have a rifle off your shoulder or something like that. So I went and hid my rifle in my backpack off in the bushes a few yards away. Mm-hmm. And I started up the trail, and right away I ran into this guy who had given me his bone saw a couple hours earlier, and he was quitting his hunt because he wasn't feeling very well. He said, "Where's your rifle?" I said, "Well, I hid it in the bushes because I can't carry." Well, he said, "I'll carry your rifle in your backpack out for you." And he had his own rifle and backpack. So on the way out, probably a couple hours of walking, climbing, I was talking about, boy, the Lord really blessed me today. And pretty soon he started talking about God. He said, I'm an LDS guy, and I live in Lewiston, down the road here. I was able to give him his bone saw back. And so we got up there, and Joni and I and the dog, the black lab, were sitting around the camp drinking a soda pop and rejoicing over this animal. And up comes his pickup truck pulling a horse trailer. So they saw that I had a nice animal on the ground, and they stopped. And then they went down the road about 50 yards, and they began to set up camp in a tent on the other side of the road. So I was thinking, how am I going to get this animal out of here? But then I remembered, and usually somebody will say, "I'll haul you elk out for $100. I was ready to pay them $100. There was a lot of work ahead of me. So I went down, and the 2 guys and a gal, and they were setting up camping. So I just walked down to there, and I said, "Okay, I got that elk down there. I hear I can usually rent horses for $100, and somebody will haul the elk out for me. Can we make a deal?" And he said, "I can't rent you my horses." I said, "That's okay. I've been running up and down the football stadium stairs so that I was ready for this day, but I can do it." And he said, where did you kill that animal?" And I said, "Well, it's down the trail, and it's in that saddle. I shot it from the big rock over there." "Oh, that's exactly where we intend to hunt. And we cannot have you messing around down there for 2 days. You go down and cut that thing up and get it in game bags, and I'll be down as soon as we get camp set up. I'll be down with my horses." So I had game bags. I went back down, quartered that thing, and cut off all of the extra meat. And he came down probably 45 minutes after I got back down there, and he had 2 horses that had hangers on them with the crossed thing, so you hang the bags over both sides. And we loaded up my elk, and we started back up. I said, I don't understand what's going on. I offered to rent your horses, and you said, I can't. But now I'm getting them for free, and I don't understand that. He says, well, I'm a game warden, and if I rent out my horses, then I'm outfitting without an outfitter's license. So I can give you my horses, but I can't rent them to you. And we loaded that critter in the back of my Suburban, along with all of the hunting gear and this big head and antlers filling up the back of it. Got home late Saturday night, and we were in church on Sunday morning. So what happened, Audra, is that I gave up something very important to me. It was coming between me and God, but it began to dawn on me that the day I gave up hunting, and I said, Lord, I want you to be first, he gave it all back to me. So he said, as soon as, I don't want your hunting, Bill, I want your heart. And now that I have your heart, you can have your hunting back. Mm-hmm. And then the animals begin flying into our hands as the seasons went on and hunting was kept in its proper priority. There are 3 animals that in Idaho you can only kill one in your lifetime.
What?
Yeah. If you harvest one of these 3 animals, the moose, the goat, or the sheep, once you kill one, you will not be allowed to draw another tag.
And you got all 3.
And
that's so
and
awesome.
There.
So did you have conflicts come in that 3rd week of October after you surrendered your priorities to God?
If there were any conflicts, I don't remember them. That must mean that they were easily resolved in favor of God. But if one came up, it was no sweat. God's in charge. He knows the animals out there. I don't go hunting. I go out there and he sends an animal to me. I guess that's how I think about it now. Yeah. A gift, another gift.
I know you have a heart for people. Sometimes people surrender and God doesn't turn around and give them what they surrendered in a big, beautiful gift, like your hunting story. What would you say to that choice to surrender, knowing sometimes the answer is you stay in that place of pain?
Let me tell you something that I learned when, well, we're going to have a prayer time, and if you need some prayer, come on down. We had altars. People came down saying, fix this. And that's how we treat God mostly. He's the big first responder in the sky. We don't worship him, we use him. With the pastor saying, okay, you need some prayer. What do you need prayer for? Well, I'm going to have a biopsy tomorrow, and I just pray that it comes out well. Well, we are deciding whether or not we want to buy this. We should buy this house or that house. Fix me. Fix things. Pastor Perkins was very gracious. And right after that person said, this is my request. He said, is there anything between you and God that would keep him from answering that prayer? And if there is, deal with it right now. Audra, that's how we need to talk to each other. Here's all I can tell you to do right now. Make sure you're right with God. That's all I can do. And I can't make sure you're right with God. You're the only one who can make sure you're right with God. There are no accidents. There is not a stray atom in all of the universe that God is not in control of, not one atom. So whatever is happening in their life was either caused by God or allowed by God in his love for them. You need to make sure that your relationship